Well, y'all, Apple did it again. I don't know exactly how they're doing this. They're defying the odds time and time again. They're undefeated. I don't think anyone can beat them. No matter what you do, you try to put them down, they just keep coming back. Pandemic, no problem. Hardcore, amazing phones, no problem. I don't know. I don't think you can put it down. It feels like something from The Walking Dead. I don't know. You might be thinking, well, what the heck are you talking about? Listen, I've been saying this for a while. Apple is pretty much bulletproof. These guys can do whatever they want, and they're going to come out smelling like roses and even surprise themselves sometimes, like they just did the other day. What am I talking about? Don't you worry. I'm going to tell you all about it right after this.
This is, you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back. And for all you new people, welcome. My name's Travis and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. If that sounds like fun to you, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Anything I talk about will be in the description below. But for now, let's just get into the video. Apple has done it again, defying odds when you would expect that a company who charges so much money for something as simple as a power cord, ladies and gentlemen, should fall on their face in the midst of a global pandemic and no one having no money. But they did it again. Recently, Apple released their Q2 earnings, and bruh, I gotta tell you, some of this stuff doesn't make any kind of sense. Like, how are they selling all of these things? Ain't nobody got no money, man. People are at home stuck. Well, maybe that's actually how they did it. Let's start off with one of the most amazing things. Apple was the only vendor in the world to sell smartphones to grow this past quarter. Now, again, if you remember, this entire quarter has been with COVID. Like the entire quarter has had this thing going on. It wasn't like part of the quarter was affected. This entire quarter was. And they're the only company that actually gained sales. Like I'm still trying to figure this out. And some of it may come from what I talked about a while back, which is the iPhone SE, the right phone at the right time. I've done several videos about that. I'll leave a link to one of them in the description below. It's actually a really perfectly timed phone at a perfectly timed price, and this really proves it. iPhone sales grew from just under 26 billion to just over 26 billion. What? And the iPhone SE is one of the things that they can point to. Of course, the iPhone 11 is still the world's best-selling phone, which I know may shock some of you, but I've been talking about this for a while. It went from the iPhone XR to the iPhone 11. It's the best-selling phone in the world. Right price, great performance, all the blah-de-blah. And I know some of you Android knights out there are really having a hard time. And for you Samsung knights, I got some really bad news. And that is that Samsung went from being the #1 global manufacturer of smartphones to #2, as Huawei, even without the Google app support, still managed to get #1. It's pretty crazy out there right now. So Huawei, with so many different pricing levels of their phones, really can just ship a bunch of stuff and know they're going to sell pretty much everywhere, except for maybe the US. That's actually spectacular if you think about it. I'll come back to Apple in a minute. Huawei is now the #1 selling manufacturer of phones, and they're not even in America. They would dominate if they were. Overall, the entire industry dropped 14%. And Samsung was really left out in the cold because their entire S series was way overpriced this year. And while they couldn't have known the pandemic was coming, ladies and gentlemen, that was the most poorly timed release of anything. And Apple came out with a $400 phone right around that same time, looking like a champion. What's interesting is it wasn't just smartphones that sold for Apple. Now, I had heard when the pandemic was more in China that iPad sales had gone up in China as people sheltered in place, and I guess used those for entertainment and other things. Now, I love iPads. I actually use an iPad to edit all my videos here on YouTube, an iPad Pro, so I know how great they are. But it's interesting that like everything sold, not just iPads, especially when they were really cheap on Amazon, but even their computers, their laptops, and all the things. iPad sales surged to 6.6 billion from just over 5 billion, and the company sold $7.1 billion worth of Macs. That's a 20% increase. Bruh. Even wearables hit $6.45 billion in revenue. This is a record for a non-holiday period. What is going on? Now, it makes sense that some people might need laptops and such for home, but I gotta say, I wouldn't think that Apple would be the #1 selection for that. I would think a lot of people who have to work from home, if you have to buy a laptop, I mean, you would think most companies that would make you work from home would give you a laptop, would actually buy Windows-based laptops because they're a lot less expensive. Now, here's the other thing. What if the IT companies, the IT departments of those companies are actually buying the Apple laptops for the employees? That would make some sense. But overall, I'm shocked at this. How in the world did they sell so many? This is going to be one of the few times where I don't have an answer for this. Obviously, the iPhone thing I've talked about a billion times before. Yes, they have a dominant strategy where now finally they have a lower end cost phone to get all of that market share. They have the kind of middle ground with like the 10R still in there, and of course the 11, which is actually doing work at under $700. And then the higher end Pro line, which of course the 12 Pro and stuff that comes out, they have that covered as well. So they have a little bit of everything everywhere. Now Android, any of the Android manufacturers typically have a much better range of phones. I actually just did a video about a $250, what I think is flagship level phone. I'm definitely gonna leave you a link in the description below for that. That was a really cool experiment. I love that. I put it in the end screen as well. So Apple doesn't have like that part of the segment at all. Like they don't have anything to offer there. But if they did, these numbers would be even crazier. And let's be clear, Apple is doing things in different markets with different price points that you would think would keep them from growing. I know that China's always been really important to them, and it seems to have finally worked. While not everyone's buying an iPhone in China, the iPad surge was really interesting. And here in America, I still can't get over how many iPads and MacBooks and Macs that they've sold. Now, I guess they didn't really break out if they were MacBooks, MacBook Pros, MacBook Airs. They did just release the MacBook Air and a MacBook Pro. My guess is probably a lot of those were MacBook Airs because it's the least expensive of the bunch, and you can get into a Mac laptop for pretty inexpensive. And since the iPhone is the #1 selling phone not only in the world, but certainly in America, I guess it makes sense if you want to add a laptop to your ecosystem to use one from Apple. But still, to grow from quarter to quarter makes this company seem completely bulletproof. It makes no sense that a company that is largely known for charging way too much money for any type of accessory or any product at all is able to continue to succeed. And here is really why I think they're able to do it. It's just quality, man. You can hate on Apple all you want and say that they're doing things the wrong way. But when numbers like this come out, the point is proven. Apple knows what they're doing. They're selling to the right people, they're selling the right product, and they have services, which of course is another place where they grew a lot of money. Look at these charts. Look at these charts. The fact that any of these are going up is amazing. There's a couple that went down, as you would expect them all to do, but some of these are just incredible. Now, I think it's important to point out that while the iPhone 12 won't launch until a little bit later, they say it's going to be delayed another month. Of course, John Prosser has said that all along. The reality is Apple has some work ahead of it. I really believe that one of the things they need to do to hit that next level is to come up with not only just a mid-range phone and perhaps tablet-ish thing, but a real low end. I'm talking about $350. Let's go $350, Apple, maybe even $300. Bring us something with last year's processor, a decent screen, and see what happens. I suspect they dominate if they do this, and these numbers don't lie. If you think about it, if the iPhone SE did not sell this year, their numbers actually would be worse. There is a bit of a buffer from the iPhone SE sales, so obviously there was a market for it even in a pandemic. I wonder what the market would have been if there wasn't a pandemic going on. Now, what also makes this interesting is Apple doesn't typically have growth in the second quarter because they don't release new products in the second quarter, at least not new phones. So this is unusual because, of course, the iPhone SE launched this year, and maybe this will be a new norm. Obviously, if it protects them in a down economy, it would really boost them in an up economy. And this is really no different than what Samsung's been doing for quite a while. Samsung coming out with the S series at the beginning of the year and the Note series towards the end, and then, of course, the lower end stuff sprinkled in between. But the reality is this, Apple finally is doing that, and it's working better than it does for Samsung. What does that really say? And I've pointed this out before, at least in America, there is a huge shift in the high school kid age group for using iPhones. It's like 70-80% of kids use iPhones. And while you might think that's not important, those will become the adults of tomorrow. And if that's their preference, Samsung better do something quick. And if you think that they don't have to just because it's Android versus iOS, I'm gonna tell you something right now. Kids are impressionable. And once you get a tool, that's right, a tool, not something that you think you must have that's gonna be amazing because it's the best processor. The kids don't care about the processor. They want it to work. And if they're used to something for their entire life, why would they change it when they grow up? Most of them won't. And as Apple continues to put its fingers in every part of people's lives, I don't see that changing. I think Apple dominates next year too. But what do you think? You can leave me a comment below. Maybe I've missed all this. I mean, I gave you the facts of what Apple has been able to sell this year in a down economy. I don't know how they did it, but maybe you do. Tell me in the comments below. And by the way, those videos are right here. You need to watch them. They're absolutely awesome. I'll see you next time. Peace and love. See ya.